The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
King Herod had heard about Jesus, since by now his name was well known. Some were saying, John the Baptist has risen from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said he is Elijah, others again he is a prophet, like the prophets we used to have. But when Herod heard this, he said, It is John whose head I cut off. He has risen from the dead. Now it was this name Herod who had sent to have John arrested and had him chained up in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had told Herod, It is against the law for you to have your brother's wife. As for Herodias, she was furious with him and wanted to kill him, but she was not able to, because Herod was afraid of John, knowing him to be a good and holy man, and gave him his protection. When he had heard him speak, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he liked to listen to him. An opportunity came on Herodias' birthday when he gave a banquet for the nobles of his court, for his army officers, and for the leading figures in Galilee. When the daughter of this same Herodias came in and danced, she delighted Herod and his guests. So the king said to the girl, Ask me anything you like, and I will give to you. And he swore her an oath, I will give you anything you ask, even half my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, What shall I ask for? She replied, The head of the John the Baptist. The girl hurried straight back to the king and made her request, I want to give me John Baptist's head, here and now, on a dish. The king was deeply distressed, but thinking of the oath he had sworn and of his guest, he was reluctant to break his word to her. So the king at once sent one of the bodyguard with orders to bring John's head. The man went off and beheaded him in prison. Then he brought the head on a dish and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When John's disciples heard about this, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My dear brothers and sisters, when Herod the Great died, Herod the Great was the father of the Herod that we hear today. Actually, there are two Herods. The first one, Herod the Great, who was in the time of Jesus, who beheaded the children. If you remember the story of the Holy Innocents, of when Jesus was born, and there was Herod the Great who did not want any king around that time, so he decided to behead many children at the time of Jesus, when Jesus was still born. But then Jesus had escaped to Egypt, and then when Herod the Great died, then they came back. So when Herod the Great died, his authority was shared amongst his three children. Archelaus was one of them, who received half of the kingdom. And then we had Herod Antipas, which we hear today. He's also called Herod the Tetrarch, and Philip. So there are three children, Archelaus, Herod Antipas, and Philip. And today we hear the story of Herod Antipas, who had taken the wife of Philip, and John was against that. That's what John was preaching about, that it's unlawful for you to take your brother's wife, Herodias. And this is where all this story came from. So today we have a play out of what is called pride in the gospel. Pride is when the ego takes over and takes over powerfully, even against the conscience, to satisfy the same ego, or maybe to satisfy the people around. So it does not matter what the conscience feels, the ego can come over it. And that is why they say in the book of wisdom, the wisdom literature, it talks about pride as the source of all evil, because pride takes over even the conscience, goes against the conscience. I'll give you an example. Herod was very happy, even though John the Baptist was preaching against what he was doing. He was very afraid of John the Baptist, and it even says that he used to love listening to him. But then, because pride had gone into him and he had made an oath in front of people, he had made an oath to this girl who had danced and said, "Whatever thing you ask of me, I am going to give you." Now when pride took over, and this girl said, "I want the head of John the Baptist," it was against his conscience to do that. Because he used to love. He wanted to protect John the Baptist, like the gospel says. But when pride came in, that was all lost. Because he did not want to feel ashamed in front of his guest. He said he had made this oath in front of everybody. So when pride takes over, then even you would be ready to kill in order to protect the ego. And that is what happens in the gospel today. That John the Baptist even ordered that that Herod even ordered the head of John the Baptist to be brought on a dish against his own conscience, because he wanted to satisfy his ego, which was to protect him from the faces of the people who were around him. We find also this pride in this woman, Herodias, who wanted the head of John the Baptist. I want to be seen as the queen. I want to be seen as the wife of Herod. So I would do everything to become that. And even to demand the death of John the Baptist. This is what she did. The girl also, who is the daughter of this woman, because I want to satisfy my mother, I'm just going to ask what she asked of me. So the mother said, "Go and ask for the head of John the Baptist." She did not even think about that. It might have been against her own conscience, but she asked for that. My dear brothers and sisters, like I said before, pride is the source of all evil. And you see what happens in the world today, if not all of the sins that we commit is because of pride. I'll give you an example. A girl who realizes that she's pregnant, and she wants to commit an abortion because she wants to protect her ego. She wants to protect herself against what people are going to say against her. And that is why she commits that. Most of the time we lie because we want to protect ourselves. That is also because of pride. The pride leads us because we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to be seen as bad. We don't want to be seen as people who do something bad. So we have to lie in order to protect our ego. And that in itself is embedded pride. My dear brothers and sisters, like I said in the beginning, pride is the source of all evil, and is something we need to guard against. And that is why Jesus talks about the importance of humility. He says in his word in James chapter 4, verse 6, "I hate the proud, but he would give everything to the humble." When we humble ourselves and walk in accord with our conscience, walk in accord with what God is speaking within us, then we can believe that God will continue to lead us and to guide us, and that God is happy with us. We continue to pray against the spirit of pride in everything that we do, wherever we are, that God will continue to grant us the gift of humility. He says that the Spirit of God will dull the age of pride and sharpen the age of humility in our lives. Amen.